Something I've been thinking about a lot recently is just, where does my depression come from? And we're all told that chemical imbalances cause depression and that's why medication exists, and I am on medication, and medication has definitely helped me. But what I've noticed is that my depression is very circumstantial. My mood is directly correlated to what is happening in my life, how well I think my life is going. I picked up this book called Lost Connections by Johann Hari, and I just wanted to share it because it ties in so well with my theory about me and my depression personally and where I think it comes from, because I really do think that my depression is just the result of an unfortunate combination of the circumstances in my life and then the fact that we kind of live in a fucked up world. So I just wanted to share the 9 causes of depression and anxiety that are outlined in this book. First is a disconnection from meaningful work, and the author goes on to talk about how the more autonomy you have and the more time you have to socialize, the happier you generally are in your job. What this makes me think about is just corporate jobs, like the standard 9-to-5 office route that most people end up taking after college. I feel like with those kind of jobs, yes, you have stability and a sense of routine, but you're giving away 40 hours plus of your week. And when it comes to corporate hierarchy, it really just feels like everything is about increasing the bottom line. And so when a lot of companies do things that are unethical and don't pay their employees living wages or put them in unsafe working conditions, everything just kind of feels like bullshit. Number 2 is disconnection from other people, which I'm sure we've all felt a lot of in the last year and a half. Essentially, people are spending less time together than ever, especially with remote work and the pandemic. But humans are social creatures and we need to be around other people. We need to be talking to other people. We need to have those connections. Even if you are an introvert, you still need other people in your life. I think as people spend more time on the internet and on social media, kind of tend to use those as a replacement for social interaction, and we get used to talking to people through screens and bubbles of text, but not in real life. And I think that's something that's really making us unhappy. Number 3 is disconnection from meaningful values. And this one ties into so many things. It ties into materialism, it ties into social media and wanting more followers and wanting to be prettier. In the book, he talks about how intrinsic goals are much more important for our mental health than extrinsic goals. Even though we tend to think that achieving things that look good to other people will make us happier, it doesn't actually. 4 is disconnection from childhood trauma. And this is why I always preach going to therapy. We all have shit from our childhood that we need to work out, or maybe we have shit from our childhood that we don't even know exists. And you go to therapy and you end up talking to some of your family members and you end up seeing that stuff arises. Like, that kind of stuff happens. A lot of times we don't even know what happened in our childhoods because obviously we can't remember it and no one likes to bring up the bad stuff. Sometimes you have to ask the people who raised you, like, hey, did anything significant happen that I should know about? Because those people aren't going to be around forever and there's really no replacement for them. That's something that my therapist and I have talked about. And she said that through one of her classes while she was in college training to be a therapist, she had to ask these kind of questions to her family. And she found something out that ended up being really significant that she just never knew about before until she inquired about it. Childhood trauma, especially if it's emotional abuse of some sort, will definitely contribute to your mental health issues as an adult, and you will probably see them also come out when you are in a relationship. Number 5 is disconnection from status and respect. And this just has to do with wealth inequality. Countries that have greater wealth inequality have definitely higher levels of depression and anxiety. When you're in a certain socioeconomic class and you can't break out of it, it's really hard to be in a place where you're content with your life. 6 is disconnection from the natural world. And it's pretty obvious that people are spending more time on their electronics than ever. If you live in an area that has more greenery and more nature and parks, that'll tend to be better for your mental health. Even if you don't claim to be somebody who enjoys the outdoors or who enjoys nature and dismisses it, because I know that I have in the past. And I know a lot of people that are just like, I don't like going outside. I don't like going on hikes. I hate physical activity and seeing the sun. But it is something that is primal within us as humans, that we are built to connect to nature. So when we are in nature, whether we like it or not, it does increase our feelings of well-being. Nature also helps us put things in perspective. It makes us realize that we are just one living being in a whole world of living beings. We are quite small in the grand scheme of things. We are but a speck of dust in the universe. I think that can help when you're going through some stuff, when you're spending a lot of time in your head, just to be like, oh, I live in this beautiful world and maybe my problems aren't as big as I've been making them out to be, which I know is kind of cheesy. Kind of felt the same way when I was in New York City. It was just kind of like all these gigantic buildings around me and they kind of envelope you and they make you feel small, but in a good way, in a way where you're just like, I'm just one person taking it one day at a time and everyone else is just trying to figure things out just like I am. I don't know. 7 is disconnection from a hopeful or secure future. This one's really hard because even if you spend just like a minute of your time on the news, it just feels like everything is falling apart and the world is on fire and climate change is just getting worse and worse and no one's doing anything about it and people are dying and there's a new strain of coronavirus. It's really hard to feel like you're in a place where things are getting better when you are privy to what's actually going on around you, because you don't want to be ignorant and you want to know what's going on, but you also need to protect your mental health because it's already shit. Lack of security doesn't have to just be about the state of the world in general. It could also be that you're worried about your finances and your job, or you're worried about your health. All of those things are very, very difficult because uncertainty is just a bitch of a feeling to deal with. Like, you know, you shouldn't be worried about something because there's nothing you can do about it, but also you're still fucking worried because it's such a significant thing in your life, and you feel like if you don't feel some type of way about this very important thing in your life that could fuck everything over, then there's something wrong with you. And I'm not 100% sure how to let go of things like that. I don't know. I don't have a good answer. Number 8 is brain changes. And in the book, he talks about when you are used to thinking a certain way, if you just tend to be a pessimist and you spend most of your time living with negative thoughts, then it's really hard to break out of that. When you make a habit out of thinking everything is awful and your life is going horribly, it's hard to pick yourself up and try to change those thoughts. And cause number 9 is genetics. And of course, genetics do play a factor in mental illness, but it is not the whole picture. In the book, he talks about how anxiety and depression are between 30 to 40% inherited. And of course, there's still lots of research that needs to be done about this. But the point is, even if everyone in your family is depressed and you are also depressed, that you can still do something to change how you feel. In the third part of the book, he talks about ways to address some of the things that we just talked about. And it's not easy by any means, because you can't just like quit your job and find something more fulfilling. You can't just decide one day that you're gonna find a bunch of friends that'll help you feel better. But things that you can do are get involved in your community, for example, volunteering, or maybe joining a group where everyone shares a common interest. Meetup.com is really great. You can find groups in your area of people that share a common interest as you. Getting out there and making friends, which I know as an adult is not easy by any means, but really just take whatever steps you can. Try to talk to people at work. If you already have a couple friends, ask if you can meet their friends. Mutual friends are a great way to meet people. If there's a bar or like a music venue that you like to frequent, trying to meet people there, it's really tough, but it is really important. He also talks about connecting to more intrinsic, meaningful values. Meditation is also something that's highly recommended for people with mental illnesses. I know a lot of people like to be like, oh, I can't meditate. I don't understand how that works. I can't do it. But I think just like everything else, you take baby steps. You can meditate for 1 minute at first. You can do a guided meditation. And just like everything else, as you keep doing it, you get better and better. But I think you just have to have an open mind about it, maybe do some research and see what kind of meditation resonates with you the best. It all comes down to wanting to get better. It's all about being open-minded to these solutions and trying to make them work and trying to do them consistently so that it actually has an effect on your life. And of course, going to therapy and seeking some professional help. I totally understand that a lot of these causes of depression and anxiety seem like things we have absolutely no control over. You just kind of do the best you can. Because of course, I looked at these points in the book and I was like, well, if I could just find meaningful work, if it was as easy as that, I would have done it already. There's certainly nothing easy about trying to overcome a lot of these factors, but of course, being aware of it and knowing what affects you is very important. And just starting with little ways we can try to spend more time in nature, or spend more one-on-one time with friends, or maybe learning to say no when your boss asks you to come in on the weekends. Ultimately, we have control over our lives and we are responsible for our own happiness, which is equally liberating and terrifying at the same time. I hope this video helped you learn something, or maybe you gained some new insights. I really enjoyed this book just because it reaffirmed the ideas that I already had about my depression, and knowing that there's science and studies behind some of the ideas that I had made me feel a lot better, and also made me realize that my hypothesis is probably correct, and now I can start thinking about what changes I can make to help myself. Thank you so much for watching. Go to therapy, and I will see you next time. Bye.